Good morning.
Braden here. Get the best panelists for your American seminar. In this lesson, you'll learn about the 5 types of adverbs and about panel discussions.
The conversation takes place in the late morning on the phone.
And it's between Jennifer and Daniel Giesbrecht.
Jennifer and Daniel have never met, and Jennifer is inviting Daniel to officially participate in the seminar, so the language will be formal.
Let's listen to the conversation.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
It's my pleasure. What can I do for you?
As a part of our seminar, we're going to have a number of workshops, panel discussions, and speeches. In order to advertise properly, I need to ask you some questions so that people participating in the seminar will have an idea of your background.
Makes sense.
May I begin?
Go for it.
Who do you work for?
I am a full-time employee for ExxonMobil. However, I also have a significant number of independent consulting contracts.
What are your main responsibilities at ExxonMobil?
Currently, I'm the head of the multi-chemical division. We're usually in charge of crude oil processing, although sometimes that can be outsourced.
And where are you based?
The ExxonMobil headquarters is located in Texas, which, fortunately, is where my office is.
Are your independent contracts related to your position at ExxonMobil?
No and yes. I'm usually contracted because my position is high profile. However, the contracts I receive are not because I work at Exxon. So we wanted to talk a little bit about panel discussions.
A panel discussion is a type of convention panel, which is a forum for discussion of a particular topic at conventions, seminars, and symposiums.
Usually the discussions and presentations are related to the topic of the convention itself.
Since the theme of this seminar is energy and our future, the topics for these panel discussions will probably be about things such as nuclear energy, wind energy, petroleum, and other forms of energy production.
They could also deal with reduction in energy costs, alteration of energy taxes and subsidies, or energy distribution models.
Usually, each member of the panel of delegates gives a short presentation, and after all of them are finished with their presentations, the panel is opened up for discussion and/or Q&A, which means question and answer.
Let's take a look at the vocabulary for this lesson. The first word we'll look at is
Outsourced.
obtain goods or services from an outside or foreign supplier.
Outsourced. Outsourced.
Our second word is
Series.
a number of things of a similar kind grouped in successive order.
Series. Series.
Our third word is
Crude.
in a natural or raw state, not yet processed or refined.
Crude. Crude.
Next is
Oil.
a liquid derived from petroleum used as a lubricant or fuel.
Oil. Oil.
Next is
Processing.
perform a series of operations.
Processing. Processing.
And our last word is
Headquarters.
the place that serves as a managerial and administrative center of an organization.
Headquarters. Headquarters.
Let's have a closer look at the usage for some of the words and phrases from this lesson.
In the dialogue, we heard the phrase, taking the time.
This phrase is an English idiom. Often it refers to the larger phrase, taking the time out of your busy schedule, or taking the time out of your day. What we wanted to point out here is how this phrase fits into the sentence, specifically whether to use you or your directly before it.
Many people say you because the you conjugates the verb taking. Taking the time is an action that the person performs.
However, some hold that, particularly in formal writing, taking the time as an idiom has become a noun phrase and therefore should be possessed by the individual, which would require the pronoun your.
For me, they both sound right when put in the correct contexts. If I were talking to an individual person, I'd say, you taking the time. But if I were talking to a board of directors at my company, I might say, you're taking the time.
Could you break this down?
Taking the time.
And one time fast.
Taking the time.
Our next phrase is, it's my pleasure. This is a very polite phrase used to show that you are happy about talking to the other person.
This is often used in response to the phrase taking the time. These two phrases aren't paired exactly, but they do happen together frequently.
That's right. Could you break it down for us?
It's my pleasure.
And one time fast.
It's my pleasure.
Our next phrase is crude oil. This phrase refers to petroleum before it's processed.
The adjective crude can sometimes mean low or degrading, as in that's crude language, to refer to language containing swear words.
However, in this situation, crude is a synonym for raw or unprocessed. Could you break it down for us?
Crude.
And one time fast.
Crude.
Perfect. Let's take a look at the grammar point. What's the focus of this lesson?
The focus of this lesson is the 5 types of adverbs.
In the dialogue, we heard the phrase,
We are usually in charge of the crude oil processing, although sometimes that can be outsourced.
First, we're going to look at adverbs of manner. By the way, manner is spelled with an ER, not an AR, in case you were having trouble with that.
So adverbs of manner provide information on how someone does something.
For example, Dustin drives very carefully.
Adverbs of manner are placed after the verb or at the end of the sentence.
For example, their teacher speaks quickly.
Now let's look at adverbs of time. Adverbs of time provide information on when something happens.
For example, we'll let you know our decision next week.
Adverbs of time are placed after the verb or at the end of the sentence.
For example, she visited her friends last year.
Next, we have adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency provide information on how often something happens.
Adverbs of frequency are placed before the main verb, not the auxiliary verb. For example, he often goes to bed late. Or, do you sometimes get up early?
Next, we have adverbs of degree. Adverbs of degree provide information concerning how much of something is done.
Adverbs of degree are placed after the verb or entire expression. In other words, at the end of the sentence. For example, she'll attend the meeting as well.
Next, we have adverbs of comment. Adverbs of comment provide a comment or opinion about a situation.
Adverbs of comment are placed at the beginning of a sentence. For example, luckily, I was able to come to the presentation.
Now let's look at an exception to standard adverb placement. Adverbs of frequency are placed after the verb to be when used as the main verb of the sentence. For example, Dustin is often late for work.
Okay, so to wrap things up, let's review adverb formation. Adverbs are usually formed by adding ly to an adjective.
For example, quiet becomes quietly, and careful becomes carefully.
Also, adjectives ending in le change to ly. For example, possible becomes possibly, and the e is simply removed. So another example would be probable, which becomes probably.
Adjectives ending in y change to ILY. For example, lucky becomes luckily, and happy becomes happily.
Adjectives ending in ic change to ically, ICALLY. For example, basic becomes basically, and ironic becomes ironically. That just about does it for today.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
It's my pleasure. What can I do for you?
As a part of our seminar, we're going to have a number of workshops, panel discussions, and speeches. In order to advertise properly, I need to ask you some questions so that people participating in the seminar will have an idea of your background.
Makes sense?
May I begin?
Go for it.
Who do you work for?
I am a full-time employee for ExxonMobil. However, I also have a significant number of independent consulting contracts.
What are your main responsibilities at ExxonMobil?
Currently, I'm the head of the multi-chemical division. We're usually in charge of crude oil processing, although sometimes that can be outsourced.
And where are you based?
The ExxonMobil headquarters is located in Texas, which, fortunately, is where my office is.
Are your independent contracts related to your position at ExxonMobil?
No and yes. I'm usually contracted because my position is high profile. However, the contracts I receive are not because I work at Exxon.